new old ones right up at the top. You can see the difference in the coloration of the wood. Been a long-running interest of mine to form trees into various shapes. I actually started a conversation I had with a brother of mine about shipbuilding and whatnot, and got into the thing he heard about people finding timbers of just the right shapes to form the keel and stuff of the boat, so that you didn't have to try to bend it or form it up out of separate pieces. You could just get a much stronger piece that way, because the grain would run with the shape that you wanted it to run in. Well, got to thinking about that. Well, couldn't you just grow trees like that on purpose? I wonder if they ever did that. And then I got to thinking, well, geez, I wonder if I could actually, grow a whole house that way by, growing the individual parts of it and bending them into the shapes I wanted. And also, in my youth, was very involved with machines on one level or another. My family raced motorcycles, and I at some point started thinking, in a way, these machines around us are part of a living organism too. They're a living organism that at this point relies on us for reproduction, but we can't make machines with our own body. We use other machines to do it. So in a sense, they're a self-reproducing organism already that uses our help to do it. Finally, it came to me that what I really needed to do was to concentrate on all the various things you might be able to do that might be useful or saleable or in one way or another attractive or different that I could do in a shorter time with less area and all that. So by the time that I came around to met my wife and started learning about the principles of permaculture, I'd already thought of all those principles. The same principles that apply to living systems apply to what we call the non-living or mechanical systems, the technical systems, however you want to state that. And I realized that I already had what I had wanted, a mini robot that could reproduce itself and produce other useful products. That is, a seed of any plant is composed of cells that are self-reproducing, and yet can also reproduce in slightly different ways and amalgamate together and thus produce all kinds of structure and materials and useful things. I don't know as I have a favorite wood, but just finding different aspects of the different woods that I like best. I like hickory and oak because they're really hard, but they're not necessarily the easiest to tie, and I like the cherry because it's easy to tie and it's really beautiful. And there's a ring right up there. It's about ready for harvest. I just decided to let that stay just a little longer to make sure it had a good solid graft. See, now there's all this brand new growth down below that. And pretty sure some of that's ready to tie on. So this is a black cherry, which has become a favorite for tying, and it's also nice for finishing. Because it's not, wood not being so hard as oak isn't so hard to carve either. By pre-rolling this around here before I tie it, I kind of soften up the wood without breaking it and make it easier to tie it around there. And take off enough leaves to give me a nice big loop there, and I can pass those through without damaging them. Tricky part there when you have where there's a little knob from a stem. Sometimes you have to pass it under there and get that tight, otherwise it won't tighten up. Okay. So this is a little shed where all the rings actually started, because I make the armatures in here, and they mostly end up in here too when I harvest them. I've got these two here that clip them apart. And I don't, with the clippers, get up too close to the ring, because clippers kind of crush the wood a little bit, so I want to carve those off with a knife or saw. And that also doesn't damage the wood. That little bit of bark there is just bark. Which I hadn't marked yet. Just in case I forget. And that just puts a hole in the armature, which now makes it easier for me to carve it out. Carve out the wood. This is a dull knife because it's just when I use utility in my pocket. But you see, it's not real hard to go around that circle and carve it out bigger and bigger now. And once I get close enough, I can actually just crack that armature right out of there without actually cutting into the wood of the ring at all. Also, in most of the ring finishing, after the armature is taken out, I would then actually take the bark off the ring. Is usually the next step. And that lets me know, I can see better where the wood is actually running and where the grafts occurred best and everything. The bark kind of covers things up, and it often looks like there's no graft. When there is, you'll see these big indents in the bark, and usually underneath there the wood is grafted together. That's just an artifact from before it's pushed to the outside of the ring. So once that bark is all off and I can see it better, then I decide how much carving I'm going to do on the ring. Some rings, if they're a good deal smaller than this one they finish, require no carving at all in order to work as a ring. But most of them, like this ring, I can tell once I got the bark off and everything, it would still be a little bit fat on your finger. There'd be too much between your fingers. So it has to be carved down somewhat, or sometimes I just carve them out on the inside in order to create that little bit thinner band that way. And once that's all finished, during which time I keep it in the plastic bag like that so it doesn't dry out. It'll be in the bag. I take the ring without bark finished almost to the surface I want. I don't finish it all the way because there's no sense yet. Because what I do next is I'll put it in my mixture, which is a mixture of carnauba wax and tung oil. Both excellent finishes by themselves, but together I found they're even more durable and kind of nicer to work with in some ways. This kind of seems like a pretty heavy pasty wax when they're mixed together like that, but of course once I heat them up in the pan or my little alcohol burner, which I sometimes use, that soaks right into the wood and drives out the moisture, which I have to do carefully in order not to heat the ring up too much, so I have to kind of watch it the whole time and adjust the temperature so it works just right. Now it's kind of an idea that the two things actually tie together. When I'm drilling my rings, I had to use the materials in my little junk pile to make a lathe so I could turn out the armatures in order to get the ring to go. So it's the living systems of biological living systems, I think, can tie in with the technological living systems in such a way as to augment the biological or the biota of the planet. That is, we could actually have more green and living matter on the planet through the use of technology rather than the drastically less that we tend to be producing now.